Hello, welcome to Drawn by Brittany. I'm Brittany, and today we are going to be starting a brand new series on this channel. Specifically, that series is going to be the alphabet series. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it was originally started by Drawing with Waffles, and for those of you who don't know who she is a fabulous artist right here on YouTube. I'll link her down below. She is one of my inspirations for starting out this channel in the first place, so please go and give her some love. She deserves it. Now, what the alphabet series is basically you draw your favorite character for every letter of the alphabet. So obviously we are going to be starting with the letter A today. Now, this was a very easy choice for me. Having grown up in the 90s, I was all about everything Disney, and that included everything Disney princesses. So, for the letter A, it was a very natural choice that I went with Ariel. Now, Princess Ariel is not necessarily my favorite princess of the lineup. However, I do think she is one of my favorites to draw because she is a mermaid. She has so much opportunity to get creative with her poses. She can twist and bend and angle herself in ways that a regular human with 2 legs and 2 feet simply cannot. So, with this in mind, I really wanted to do something fun with her, and I ended up settling on this pose where she is sweeping down in like this big backwards letter C shape. I really wanted a strong line of action, so I went with that big angle and just coming down to admire and smell this flower underwater. Now, whether or not you can actually smell flowers underwater is a completely different question. However, for the sake of this picture, we are going to ignore those pics and just go with it. That being said, while we are talking about that flower, if I did have to pick a thing that I regret in this picture, I wish I had taken more time to really work on that flower. I'm not sure if any of you guys have actually seen underwater plant life or coral reefs or any of that, but they are so alien and so beautiful and so otherworldly. I really had an opportunity to push something there, but I really missed the mark. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like what I have. I just wish if I could go back, that would be the one thing I would do. I would go back and look at all these different flowers and study them and practice them so I could really have something that was more unique instead of this seaweed looking flower thing. Nevertheless, we are now moving on to our line art. So the big thing about line art for me is I want to make sure I transfer that same energy and the same spark that I had with that sketch. So because of that, I tend to get carried away when it comes to my lines. I do my lines over and over and over and over again until I get it just right, because it's really important to me that I capture that same energy, that same life that I had in the original sketch. And this can be hard to do, so it's hard to emulate. So I really try and take my time to be as fluid as possible when it comes to my inking. Now, next we will be going into our colors. Now, what you may have noticed is I just changed my background color from white to this bright blue. Now, the reason I did that is so that way you can see the colors a lot better to see what I have and have not colored. I really recommend it. It just makes it a lot easier when you are putting down your main flats and your main color palette. It's very important. Now, when I pick my colors, since Ariel's color palette is a very iconic one, when I picked the flower colors, I wanted to make sure it went well with her. So a basic rule that I go by is I try to make sure I do not have one color in there that is not repeated. So what I mean, I think a better way to say it is every color you definitely see more than once in this picture, or if not, it's within the same family of colors. So for example, for the flower colors, I chose that purple, which you can see but in those shells. I chose pinks, which is similar to the warm reds and the color of her lips, and they kind of meld well together. So just a bit of advice. And this transfers over as well when it comes to my shading. When I shade, I try to avoid using as much black as possible. I never ever use black when it comes to my shadows, because if I do, it really flattens and muddies my picture. So I try to avoid that as much as I can. Instead, as an alternative, I will use cool colors or colors that I see in other parts of the picture. So for example, for the shadows in this image in particular, I use lots of purples to shade. I shade with purples on her skin and a little bit on the tail. Now it's very subtle. I don't go overboard with bright violets to get those shadows. I do a very, very subtle gradient of purples, and you can really see it in particular on the tail there. It really helps to liven it up, because if I did a black, it would really kind of make things just gray and not that fun. So just something to keep in mind. This transfers over to the lighting as well. So instead of using a stark white for highlights, instead I lean toward warm colors such as maybe pinks, or I even sometimes use a light yellow as well. Because the sun is yellow, it makes sense that the lighting on a person or clothes or object is also going to be a very light yellow as well. So typically colors are going to reflect off one another. So just keep that in mind. Just lighting, everything needs to look like they belong to the same environment. So that being said, I also use that same principle when it comes to coloring my line art as well. So I never try to leave all my line art black. I always try to color some of my line art just to give it a little bit more livelihood, and I really help with things to just bring it all together at the end. And speaking of the end, it looks like we're about to wrap this up. So a few notes I want to make before I sign off. I apologize for how rambly I am. I try to be as real and genuine as I can with these voiceovers. I did this voiceover so many times. I re-recorded over and over and over again because I was so caught up with being perfect kind of how I always redo my lines. I've been so paranoid of my weird ums and my awkward pauses in between my sentences, but in the end I just wanted to say enough is enough, because I want this to be a conversation with you guys. So if you have something to say, or if you want to tell me any suggestions for the letter B for your favorite character, please let me know in the comments down below. I update every Sunday, and this has been Brittany from Drawn by Brittany. Hope you all have a wonderful day.